Welcome to the Lemons and Pineapples podcast. I'm your host, Emma O'Brien, personal development coach, heart math practitioner, dog photographer, and entrepreneur. In this podcast, I share tools, strategies, and amazing guest interviews to help you improve your mindset and your well-being with a sprinkle of fun and probably some mention of dogs along the way. So without further ado, let's squeeze the day. Before we jump into today's episode, I'm looking for a handful of people who can beta test a new coaching package I'm offering. I work with people who are stuck in their lives or careers and would like support in making changes, as well as people who battle with the effects of stress and anxiety. If you feel you would benefit from some coaching, which I'm going to offer at a 50% discount for my beta testers, please send me a DM on Instagram at Emma O'Brien Coach, and we can arrange a time to chat. Hi folks, welcome to episode 21 of the podcast. Today I'm joined by artist Gurm, and we're talking about courage and vulnerability, both of which are required when you're making and sharing creative work. First, I just want to share a bit of background on Gurm. So artist Gurm was born in India. She grew up in China and currently resides in Thailand. Having grown up and been schooled in an international environment, immersed throughout in a multicultural atmosphere, she has always been fascinated with the unique cultural elements and stories from all over the world. After following art as a passion since her middle school days, she honed her skills by doing a master's in visual arts in Hong Kong, and she works in the medium of drawing, painting, and mixed media. She has had several solo exhibitions in China and has gained recognition of her art globally. Gurm's artistic inspiration comes from everyday life, and she is interested in creating works that represent the familiar world around us. By looking beyond the obvious, Gurm reconstructs the everyday environment around us into something artistically unique, which allows the audience to discover beauty in unusual places. Welcome, Gurm.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me. And thank you for inspiring others with your work as well.
Thank you very much. And it's lovely to have you here. So this is a conversation I'm excited to have. As a creative person myself, I'm a professional photographer. I know what it takes to be making and sharing creative work in the world and how difficult it can be. So it takes a huge amount of courage, I think, to carve out a career as a commercial artist. And like I've said, I can relate to an extent with photography, and I can relate to the fear that often has to be kept in check when it comes to sharing your creative work with a public audience, because of course we open ourselves up to other people's opinions, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. My opinion on what you do is that the art you create kind of demands vulnerability on a whole other level from photography. You know, for me, I photograph dogs. So I'm photographing the dogs that are in front of me. And as long as it's technically correct, that's kind of what's there. But for you, you're creating art completely from scratch. And I think that's a very different way of showing up in the world as a creative person. So what drew you to becoming an artist?
Actually, you will be surprised to know whenever I tell people this, they're always like, wait, what did you say? Because art was actually my least favorite subject and I had no interest in it at all. And I had told everyone around me that I don't know what I will be in the future, but I know one thing, that I will never, ever do anything art related. And I used to run away and escape from workshops and art classes and find any excuse that I cannot be near anything artistic or creative. Because
question for you before you continue. It's so funny you're saying that you avoided art, because I can distinctly remember just before I started photographing dogs, doing a family photo shoot with some dogs and getting very frustrated with it because it was difficult and saying, I'm not a dog photographer. Famous last words. And fast forward a decade. Yes, I'm a dog photographer. What I wanted to ask you, what popped into mind for me when you were talking there is, Why did you shy away from art?
So like in primary school, we had art classes, and teachers love to stick to the syllabus and go by the book, and everything has to be measured and perfect. Like you were saying in photography, it has to look realistic. It has to have the exact color. It has to have the exact technique, exactly line measured that way. And I used to honestly struggle with that because everyone has different art style. I didn't know that when I was young, primary, of course. So I used to struggle with that, and I didn't understand why everyone looked at me weird or laughed at me or bullied me or judged me. So that's why I wanted nothing to do with art, because it really hurt. And I was like, I suck at it. And what's the point of even putting in my best effort when my best effort is worse for other people? So um, that's why I used to, just avoid it and run away from it, even as a student. And in middle school, everything changed because it started with my seventh grade art teacher. She gave us a task, which was to glue a piece of paper in our workbook, sketchbook, the book we use for learning and research and drawing. But the paper that we were supposed to glue was bigger than the page in the sketchbook. So I think she wanted to test us creatively or challenge us. So I didn't think much about it. I was like, okay, what do I do? I'll just fold it or something and then make it fit in the book and I'm done. And she, I guess, noticed that, or noticed something unusual about that she said that you have to come with your parents to parent-teacher conferences. Okay, and I was so scared because of all my previous experience of teachers saying you're never going to be an artist, your art sucks, you fail in class, whatever. So I was like, oh, she's going to say the same thing to my parents, and she's calling me. So I must have done something extra bad or whatever. So, I'm like, I'm in trouble. I'm just done for. I'm gone. And I went there, and she said to my parents that your daughter has a unique and special talent and we should actually encourage her in art. And I don't know why she's so scared and whatever is bothering her, but she's really gifted and talented. And she said to me, she looked me straight in the eyes and she said, let yourself go, fly free. And that encourages me till today. And I was actually really shocked because she was the first teacher and first person to ever say that to me. And I was like, oh, wow, she must have really noticed something. And so art became a curiosity. And throughout my middle and high school, I met such encouraging and supporting teachers who encouraged me to develop my art style and who told me that you don't have to, copy paste or do anything that other artists are doing, because art is supposed to be imaginative, it's supposed to be unique, it's supposed to be you. And if this is the way you draw, then this is the way you draw. So yeah, that changed everything. So
yeah, and I think it's amazing, isn't it, from having a very negative experience with it that put you off, having that one person who was able to encourage you and say, almost giving you permission to show up as you, and just those words of encouragement. I can remember when I was at school, I hated art for the reasons you've mentioned, that I can't draw. Well, as I say, I can't draw in a realistic fashion, which is what was required often at school. And I can remember there were two different art teachers at school. The art class always happened in complete silence. It wasn't fun. It was really unpleasant, and I really, really didn't enjoy it. And it's interesting. I've got one of my best friends, her two boys go to a school in Johannesburg, and they had the most delightful art teacher who made it fun for everybody. And we actually ended up, as me, who will tell you, I can't draw, I can't paint, because I get frustrated because whatever I try doesn't look like it looks in my mind, and I'll use it as an excuse to beat myself up. We went to some art classes with Jo, the art teacher, and we had a great time because she would stand with us and say, right, what are we doing today? What do you feel like doing? And I'd say to her, I can't draw, so I don't want to draw anything. So she'd say, cool, let's have a rummage in my paper drawer and maybe we can tear some paper up. I'm going to show you a couple of painting techniques and we can do this and we can do this. And all of a sudden, it became really fun just sort of making a mess. And it totally flipped the way I looked at it, because it stopped me going, oh, I'm really bad at this, to, well, it doesn't matter because I'm not trying to do this professionally. And I can just enjoy creating for the sake of creating. And I've got this super teacher who's able to share some techniques and say, oh, I think that's working really nicely. So I can 100% relate to that piece of having somebody encouraging you. It's so, so important.
It is. It really is. And I also, in my workshops and whatever I do, I also try to do that I have workshops with both kids and adults. So I also try to do that, to remember that everyone's art is different. And I want to be that encouraging supporter and cheerleader for everyone too.
Yeah. And I just see it's so valuable for people, because for the most part, people who want to come and create art are doing it for fun, to learn a new skill. And as soon as you take that pressure off and you say, well, what do you like doing? And if I was to come to one of your workshops, I would tell you, I just like throwing paint at a canvas to see what the hell happens. And that's okay. It's completely fine. But there probably are some techniques of paint you might want to use that sticks better. Mm-hmm. And we can learn and have fun that way. So I think it's wonderful that you're doing that for people as well. Where do you get your creative inspiration from when it comes to the work that you make?
Honestly, from everything and anything around me. It could be the biggest things, it could be the smallest things. So when I first started creating, every piece of art is very personal to me, based on a situation I've had or experience I've had or emotion I'm feeling, whether that's negative or positive. I just throw my emotions in my art, or it could be something I've read or watched or a conversation I've had, or like just I love traveling and food and all of that. So it could be a food item, it could be a clothing item, it could be anything cultural, because I grew up as a third culture kid. So I love learning about different cultures and histories and stories of the world. So it could be that. So basically, like, life inspires me. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant, because it's always, again, it's interesting for me talking to another creative person. For my photography, it's where do you get the ideas from? And it's a little bit different for you, because you're literally creating from a blank piece of paper or acrylic or a canvas, whatever you're working with. And for me, I've always got a subject in mind, which is dogs, and it's how do I bring that to life in a new way. So it might be a new technique, or it might be a different style of lighting or a particular location. And my creative inspiration tends to come when I'm in quiet time. So if I allow it a bit of room to come out. So often, if at the end of a yoga session, I might have an idea. Often just as I'm falling asleep, sometimes brilliant ideas arrive, and it's the most inconvenient time for it to come. I'm like, oh, damn it, I'm half asleep. Let me find my notebook. So is there something you do in terms of a meditation practice or a journaling practice that helps you to really get in touch with those creative ideas and fine tune them?
So I'll be honest with you, these past few months haven't been good for me. I've been struggling with my art. I mean, as a human too, but like we're talking art, so like as an artist, I've been stuck and unmotivated and feeling really lost. So I've been writing a lot. So um along with like visual arts, I also do writing and vlogging. So I've just been writing it down. Sometimes I love to share my writings with the public, but if it gets too personal, I just journal for myself. So I've just been writing all my thoughts down, and sometimes those writings are like poems or like prose or like blog posts, but also sometimes they can turn into artworks. Like, oh, I can combine this and make it into artwork and use the writing like that. If I get inspired like by the everyday things, I like you said, have a notebook, write it down. Oh, how can I, like, I saw this flower today. That's such a pretty flower, but I don't want to draw it realistically. So how can I combine that with my pattern? Or how can I change the color? I like that it's purple, but I don't want it to be purple. So how can I make a new color that I imagine that flower to be, or something like that? So I take a picture of it, or I write it down, or I just, do something like that. So
yeah, I think that's really great information. Thank you for sharing your process. And I find when things are a bit difficult and there's lots of thoughts happening, I know you've quite recently relocated to Thailand, haven't you? So I guess there's the adapting to being somewhere new, which probably doesn't help with the creative flow quite so much. But I have also found journaling to be super helpful when there's difficult feelings and emotions coming up, because it's the act of getting it down on paper, is it's not swilling around in your head anymore. And I think that's sometimes very, very useful as a sort of self-soothing therapeutic methods, just help process through things. So I hope your creative muse reappears soon for you.
I've been doing the Inktober challenge because I'm like, I can't create like just by myself. All my ideas I feel like are damaging to me right now in a way, because I'm just like having those limited beliefs and self-doubt. So I think a prompt will help. So right now my challenge is to get through all 30 days of Inktober without criticizing myself or feeling, those feelings. And then November, I will try and create something of my own again. So I think that also really helps, like accountability and sharing with someone. So I'm doing it as part of a group. So that also really helps sometimes.
Yeah. And I think to speak to that self-doubt piece, it is, as a creative person, I don't think that ever goes away. And it's something I find very hard. It's not something, I don't know about you, but for me, it's not something I would show up on my photography page and spill out to everybody. Oh, by the way, this week there's some self-doubt going on. I think it tends to be something you sit quietly with on your own, and it's very, very hard to process through it. I think it can be crippling when it comes to trying to create stuff, because I know from my perspective, when the self-doubt really takes hold, everything I produce will be crap. In my view, I will look at it and I will be able to pull it apart and tell you all of the ways it's awful, all of the ways I'm useless. And it is a very hard aspect of being a creative person. And so thank you for sharing vulnerably about that, because it isn't something people talk about. I was listening to, there's an artist called Tom Odell who I particularly like. And one of his songs, I think one of the lyrics that sat with me, in one of his songs he'd written, I think all the work I've done is rubbish, essentially. And you kind of, I think having these conversations, you sometimes think, oh, thank goodness I'm not the only person who sits with these challenging thoughts that happen and these challenging beliefs that happen. So for you, when you've had periods of self-doubt before, what have you done to be able to overcome that?
First of all, I just step away from the pressure, social media pressure. My God, I can go on about that. That's a whole different topic, but I took a break. I stepped away from everything, and I was like, okay, without social media, without all the pressure, without anyone, all alone, am I able to create? All alone, I wasn't even able to create, just me. So I was like, oh, this is bad. This is like serious. So I was like, okay, I just need to let the feeling pass. I will cry, scream, break down, do whatever I need, journal, just talk it out with my close family and friends. Just let this feeling pass before I'm comfortable going public again. So this time, that's what I did. Sometimes social media actually helps. So other times I've had self-doubt, I just post that I'm feeling this way because, like you said, people can relate. So I don't have to post exactly like my innermost thought. I can word it in a way that I feel is suitable for the public, right? So I just write about it or make a video about it or create a piece about it and post it. And because my art is so connected to me as an artist, and I know that people can relate to it because it connects humanity. So if I can create art about like celebrations or small wins or happy times, then I should be able to share about the low, negative, doubtful times also. And I know that also helps other people and it helps me too. So, my mission for my art is to inspire and spread hope and be relatable and actually have these human to human conversations, because before I used to hide this. I used to get into like societal expectations and, oh, you have to post this way. Oh, that video has to be that way, like I was taught in school. So I think, I don't know, that stuck with me or something when I first started my art journey. And I lost myself. I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, who is this public Gurm? I don't know what I'm doing. So I stopped. I was like, I need to figure this out. And I just need to be myself, good, bad, negative, positive, weird, crazy, whatever it is. People will judge me either way. So I'll just be me. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice just for you. So there's a few pieces in here that I think are really useful that you've said. The first one was feeling the feelings and then letting that feeling pass. And I think that's such an important part of being able to overcome difficult times. Is often it's very easy to try and shove the feeling away, tell yourself you shouldn't be feeling like this. And the best thing you can do is sit with it, because usually they pass quite quickly when you sit with them and you process through them and you almost converse with them. If it's self-doubt, for example, how are you helping me here? What are you doing? Because often our negative feelings are there to keep us in our comfort zone. And as creatives, we're always fighting to get out of that, but you've got that inner battle happening. So I think that's a really great piece of advice, of processing through the feelings, talking to people, journaling, and allowing it to come up, move through, and dissipate again. And I like what you said as well about monitoring the social media piece, because I think when you are, as a creative, in a bit of a low spot, you end up comparing yourself to other people and you will always fall short. And it is a way that we feed that self-doubt. So again, that piece of taking a break from social media and going and having a change of scenery and just dropping the social media interaction is a brilliant way to also break that state, I think, because it sucks you in. And we have to remember that all we're seeing on social media are people's highlight reels of life. It's not the reality. And like we said, we're having this conversation about how difficult it is to be a creative. But for the most part, and I'm guilty of doing it, you will see the end finished results that's all polished, and we're talking about how brilliant it is. And the last piece that I really enjoyed what you shared is this authenticity and showing up as you. And it amazes me how people respond when you're actually brave enough to go, this is me with my crazy, my weird, my everything. And I say that in a good way, because it's great to have your crazy and weird coming out, because when you have your crazy and weird coming out, other people go, oh, it's okay for me to allow my eccentric side of myself, or actually my regular side that I hide, to come out. I did a photography project in 2019 called the Black Series, and I photographed Black rescued shelter dogs against a Black background, and it was all about the kind of tones. And it was a project that I started, and I photographed it and I looked at it, and it was quite cool. And I had this idea to caption the dogs as if they were describing themselves for a Tinder profile, because I thought it was funny. I'd done a previous project, and it had been quite serious, and the stories of the dogs, and it was all about, they'd had an unfortunate start and they'd all been adopted, but I looked at it and thought, I don't want to rinse and repeat the same formula, because I think we're quite tired of seeing sorry stories online, and we end up with compassion fatigue. So I thought, how do I make this really fun? I've got these quite artistic, beautifully lit pictures. How do I put a spin on it? So I came up with this idea of captioning them like they were describing themselves for Tinder. And I just let my imagination run wild with this. And I had a cat that was, it was also some cats, a cat that was a secret MI5 agent. I had all sorts going on. And I almost didn't share it, because that self-doubt came up of, people aren't going to take you seriously as an artist. You look like you're being childish. It looks really silly. What are people going to think? What will the owners of the dogs who bought them for pictures think? Are they going to be insulted by this? And I sat with it for a while, and I wrestled with it, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put it out, because it's mine. It's authentically mine. It amuses me. And if the only person who is amused by this is me, that's okay. And what happened in reality was that this project went viral globally, because people resonated with it, because they thought it was amazing. They thought it was funny. And I think the pictures were good, but I think what actually really helped people relate to it and made it so popular was the combination of the captions of me just letting my inner silly out to play for a little while, and it was ridiculous. And I sat with that for a while, and I thought, imagine if I hadn't done that. It just, the work wouldn't have got out there. And it was a huge lesson for me in this piece of, it's just be authentically you, because it will resonate. People energetically pick up on that. I think when something is just really genuine, they pick up on it and they relate to it. So thank you for bringing that piece up as well. I think it's just such an important reminder for people. My last question for you is the how you deal with criticism from people. So this is one of the hard pieces of being creative. And I think with your work of creating art and mixed media, it's particularly bad. I had an exhibition last year, and somebody came. It was a male photographer, not a professional photographer, somebody who, one of these people, all the gear, thinks he's great. And he came and he said to me, "Oh, Emma, I'm really enjoying this year's exhibition. It's so great. I love the way you've shot it. It's far better than last year's exhibition that you did. And it wasn't meant with malice, but I kind of looked at him and I thought, I didn't ask you for any feedback. It was pretty audacious of you to just come up and tell me what you thought. And and I kind of sat and I took it, and he left, and I just thought, well, I don't know what to say to it. Do you pick a fight with somebody and say, how dare you talk to me like that? So I left it, and I just, but I found it quite shocking that somebody felt the need and that they had the magic permission to just tell me exactly what they thought of my work with no consequence of how that might be received or
like they're an expert on it. Like they're the expert, not you. That's what.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody's going to have an opinion about your creative work. Super, but I don't want your opinion unless I ask for it. So it irritated me, and then I just kind of let it go because I think it was sort of it was meant as a compliment. It just was a little bit insulting with so much better than last year's. Thanks, matey. How do you deal with criticism? Because I think for your again, like we've said, my work is photographs of dogs, so you can think the style's a bit better, maybe technically it's a bit better, but again, I've got a subject that's already there that I've photographed. For you, you're making work that comes from deep within the recesses of your soul. How do you deal with criticism from people when really yourself is wrapped up in that art?
So not to avoid your question, but just to go back a little bit, I will come back to your question, Emma, but I remember you just talked about, posting the finished work, right? Only the final product. But I just wanted to add something to that I started posting like work in progress and behind the scenes and behind my thoughts and the meaning of the work so people can understand it better and actually understand the hard work and passion it takes, that it's not just a painting, or it's not just one story and I'll paint it like that. It changes, it might change, it might stay the same. So I just wanted to add that. Now, criticism, it really, really, when I first started my art journey, it used to sting. Like every comment, every word that was said to me was proof that I made the wrong choice of being the artist. I'm a failure and I should just give up. And why bother if people are not going to be encouraging? And some people are encouraging, but I mean, there are people who think that I'm not good enough, so I should just do a 9-to-5 job, or I should just do something because I already had the thoughts that art was not going to make money anyway, and I will be a starving artist, and all of those stereotypes. I already had that self-doubt, and criticism just added fuel to the fire. And I was like, okay, now I'm just done. Goodbye. I will just delete all my posts. It's like I never existed. Don't ever call me an artist. And then slowly I felt all the feels again. And I kept going slowly, and I kept gaining more recognition, getting more experience. And I was like, wait a minute, I tend to do that too. Like, I don't appreciate other people's criticism, but I criticize and judge other people's work too when I'm an artist. And I have my own opinions that don't match those artists or like those creators. And I disagree with what they say, and yet I'm still inspired by them. I still follow them, but I disagree sometimes. So I think that people have that opinion of my work too, right? Not everyone's going to think the same, or there will always be people, even if I do a job. Okay, for example, even if I quit being an artist and just do something else, people are still gonna criticize and judge me. It doesn't matter, it's not related to the art, it's just generally in life, people are still gonna do that. And I'm passionate about it. I love what I do, and um I never want to let art go. So why am I letting these people, if I'm confident in myself, if I'm like you said, if you were the only person who liked your photos, you will still post it and be confident about it. So I had that opinion about my art too, that even if I'm the only person in the world that likes my art and no one else likes it, I'm still not going to stop, because I have that knowledge and I have that confidence in me that I can deal with it, right? And if people are gonna troll me, or they're gonna be hate comments, I have the power to take them out of my life, right? Just because of them, I'm not gonna stop. I can block them, I can delete them, I can do whatever with them. So now that's how I deal with it.
I think that's brilliant. And I read somewhere that I don't know who said it. You haven't reached the pinnacle of success until you've got some haters. So,
Exactly.
so, and I think I always think the fact that somebody has seen your stuff and it has triggered them so greatly that they need to tell you how they feel about it, it says more about that person than it does about you. And it's I think you have to develop a bit of a thick skin when you are putting your creative work out, because like you've said, if you listened to everybody and their feedback, I'm using inverted commas with the feedback that we didn't ask for, you'd stop. And for you, art is the essence of your being. It's something you're hugely passionate about, and I think it's fantastic that you aren't going to let somebody stop you with that you're following the calling of what makes you happy in life.
And there's also generally people who criticize, they're not actually criticizing. You have to learn to read, because there's actually genuinely constructive criticism of people who want to help you. Like, genuinely, they want to help you grow and improve, and they're giving that opinion that maybe you can do that differently in the work next time. I was like, okay, I will try it, and genuinely it made the work better. And I was like, this person is not being mean, genuinely giving feedback. So you also have to take that constructive criticism. So.
Yes, and I think it's who you listen to with feedback. If you're listening to someone who is an experienced artist and can say, you could tweak your technique here, it might make it better, superb. But I think often that's going to be feedback you've requested. I think the unsolicited feedback is interesting. Let's just park it there. It's interesting. But yeah, and I think you can choose to take it or leave it, because art is just so subjective. When I'm in the UK, my favorite gallery to go to is the Tate Modern in London, because I love a bit of modern art, just because I find it's one of those things that's triggering for people. It's sometimes I get triggered. There's work that's up in the Tate Modern and you look at it and you think, really? But again, that's the thing. My 5-year-old could have done this, but your 5-year-old didn't, did they? That's why it's up on the wall of the Tate Modern. And I think it's so interesting when you listen to people's conversations happening. My favorite piece of art that hangs in the Tate Modern is Yves Klein's Blue. I can't remember which number it is, but it's his, and it's just a canvas that's painted blue, and it's worth millions. And it tickles me every time I see it, because I look at it and I just think that is audacity at its best. Really, it's a blue canvas. And if I speak to my partner, who's an engineer, he is horrified by that. That's not art. That's ridiculous. And this is why I think art is so exciting, because it just people have these conversations. And for me, I just think it is the most brilliant piece of art, because it's somebody's idea, it's somebody's concept, and they just went, I'm painting this blue and I'm owning it. And I think that for me is just what is so brilliant about art. If you can be confident enough to say, this is me, this is how I'm showing up, here I am. Take it, don't take it, but I believe in myself.
Exactly. That's so true. And again, different of opinions, like distasteful or tasteful. So doesn't matter. It's still hanging there. So
absolutely, it's still worth tens of millions of pounds. So, Gurm, this has been a really brilliant conversation to have with you today. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for sharing vulnerably. And thank you for opening up about the process behind your work and what it means to be an artist and the ups and downs that happen with that. I think it's just been so valuable for you to share that with my audience, because I just think people don't always realize, it's a process. And I really enjoyed what you shared about the fact that on your Instagram, you're now sharing the behind the scenes and the process of the work as it evolves. Because people seem to really resonate with seeing behind the scenes stuff from creative people, because it's almost a little glimpse into your secret magical process, which it is a magical process. It's it's where we couldn't really say exactly where these ideas come from. They arrive and you interpret them onto the canvas. So where can people find you? What is your Instagram handle so people can go and have a look at these work in progresses of yours and your completed works?
So my Insta is at Gurm's Art, GURMSART, and I'll be happy to connect if you message me or want something. I also do commission, so if you want me to create a commissioned work for you, I'm available for that. Also, if you like my work.
Amazing. Thanks, Gurm. I'll share that in the link. We've also got your Linktree link, which people can click on that and go through to your website, your Instagram. And I think you've got a couple of other platforms there where people can connect with you. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Emma. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for being here on the podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please share with your friends and be sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. To find out more about my one-on-one coaching, please visit my website, which is emmaobriencoach.com. And remember, folks, when life gives you lemons, you can always choose another fruit. See you next time.